So now we're going to talk about the client interview and health history, the data that we're going to be collecting. So again, the purpose of the health interview, it's a gathering of data, okay? You are getting subjective data. While you're talking to your patient, you also can gather objective data, data that you're observing. And these are more structured conversations. So it can be open-ended questions and close-ended questions. And we're going to go into that. So successful interview characteristics. So this is the point where, again, you're building that rapport and your client or your patient, however you want to do it, is going to feel like they feel accepted and they feel free to share their information with you. And you're building that trust. You're also giving an opportunity to teach your client. There's teachable moments throughout the entire time you're with them. You're teaching the person about their health state, and you're again building that rapport through therapeutic communication. And again, you're beginning to teach for the health promotion and disease prevention. So the interview contract terms. Whenever you guys go to the doctor's office, right, you want to know how long is this going to take, who's going to come see me, and what's their purpose. So again, time and place of the interview. Is there going to be a physical exam? Yes. Introduce and explain your role. Explain the purpose of the interview, explain how long it possibly might take, and the expectation for each participant. I will explain my participation, okay, my expectation of myself, and I'll explain, hopefully, that they'll be able to participate as well, because they know everything about them and I do not. Also, if there's family in the room or friends, do they want them in or do they want them out? I'm going to give them that choice. And then whatever stays or whatever is spoken between us is confidential. Now, there's some things that we have to talk to others about. Say, for instance, they are suicidal. They're having thoughts of harming themselves or harming others. That is a safety issue. I must talk to someone else, such as my clinical manager, to go to initiate the steps for that. Now, any cost that the patient might pay, necessarily that's not us, but some places that you may have to tell them, oh, this is going to be $30 here, $30 there. But in most cases, it's the patient financial services that will explain this. So communication, it's a formal introduction. You walk into the room and you say, hi, Mr. Jones, my name is Caitlin. I'm going to be your nurse today. Again, the goal is to build rapport and establish trust. Another thing is eye contact. Establish eye contact. It's out of respect, unless there's some culture considerations you need to incorporate. There's some cultures that think it's sexually aggressive when someone looks in their eyes. Some cultures may think it's a threat. They may think you want to fight, so don't do it. If you see someone looking down, you got to also look at those nonverbal cues. Don't rush them. Don't rush your patients. Work at the same eye level. Just like how we talked about in class. You don't want me talking over you. You don't want me talking underneath you, okay? You want me talking with you. Personal space. Don't pop their bubble, okay? Plain simple. Don't want you popping my bubble. I doubt that anyone's going to want you to pop their bubble. So be respectful. If you see the client backing up and you're still going forward, take a breather, okay? You need to acknowledge that. You need to give them personal space. Begin inquiring about what brought them in today. So, what brings you into the emergency department today? Or how may I help you today? Be non-judgmental, and that goes along with avoiding why questions. Why questions can be very defensive. They can put their guard up when you ask why questions, and they may feel judged for those questions as well. Be aware of your nonverbal communication and be aware of your client's nonverbal communication. Biggest thing is yours. Just like how I talked about in class, if I'm there, I'm just like, I'm bored. You know, sometimes I see you guys and you're just like, oh my gosh, is she done talking? And then I have to switch it up because I am getting that nonverbal communication from you and I know that I'm starting to lose you. So we need to switch it up. Actively listen. Be honest with them. Look for the teachable moments. There's always teachable moments. But when you're doing those teachable moments, be careful you're not being judgmental, okay? Teach in a non-judgmental way. Avoid medical jargon. Avoid leading the patient on. Ask one question at a time. Just like how if I'm asking you a question, you only want me to ask one question at a time, right? And listen, actively listen. Now, what does it mean to actively listen? It means to, if I say, hey, my name is Caitlin, I have a dog, I live in a home, and I hate fish. Maybe acknowledge that I hate fish. So I hear that you don't like fish. Can you tell me more about that? You're acknowledging, okay, what they just said, and it's confirming with the patient that you're listening. So again, communications, behavior, conscious, unconscious, verbal, nonverbal, they all have a meaning. We all have our body language, okay? So looking at these pictures, first guy, he doesn't look very amused. He's like, is this coming to an end? This guy, he looks somewhat amused. He looks like happy as a clam. Now, who would you want out of all three to be your nurse? I would want this guy. Absolutely. I would want him because he seems engaged. His posture's not sludged over. He's not crossing his arms. There's no foot tapping. And he looks pretty engaged. It's nice. Receiving communication. So be aware of the message you sent is only one process. When you receive that message, now you have to interpret that message. So words and gestures may interpret in a different meaning. So again, when we give out communication, we have to be non-judgmental because now the client is receiving this communication and they get to interpret their way, okay? Their perception. Does that make sense? So again, actively listen and be aware of the message. So when the client's giving you a message, again, acknowledge that message. The patient's health problems intensify communication because the patients depend on us to get better. These clients are coming to us to get better. They want our help, right? I never call them and say, hey, I'm at work today. Come on in. They go, no, I have a problem and I need help. That's why they come to us, and that's why we're in healthcare. So again, I love this because it's so true. I hate it when you send a long text to someone and they just reply with K. This is how it feels when our patients are telling us everything about their problem and we don't acknowledge it. And then when we don't acknowledge their message, we start losing their trust and we start losing that rapport we just built. So internal factors, so we have to be aware of our internal and our external factors. They influence our communicating. So internal, such as liking others, empathy, being able to listen. External factors, so we talked about this, we need to ensure privacy. When we go into a room, close the curtain, okay? Refuse interruptions, unless it's an emergency. That's the only time you should get an interruption. But refuse the interruptions, okay? If someone says, oh, you have a phone call, I'll call them back. I'll call them back in 1 minute because I want to be fully engaged with my client. Physical environment. Make sure the environment's nice and cozy, okay? So what's the first thing that we do when we have patients come into the hospital? We get them completely undressed and we put them in the gown. I want to make sure they're comfortable because if they're not comfortable, they're going to be covering up and they're just going to be so concentrated on being uncomfortable that they're not going to be able to explain everything to me. The way we dress, okay, like we talked about, remember when my hair was all wild and I was like, how would you feel if I came in and I was like, hey, I'm your nurse, and I look completely unprofessional and maybe my shirt was dragged down to here, maybe my makeup was all smeared like I was at the club all night, which never happens. But do you get my point? versus where I look professional. My hair is pulled back. My makeup is clean. My dress is clean. Note taking. Now, we all can't rely on memory, okay, and that is fine. I have to have little notes because if I'm not going to remember. I live off post-its. I'm not going to remember every single little detail they tell me. So, but try to minimize how much note taking you do. Tape and video recording. I gave you the perfect example about when I got recorded for physical therapy, and once I left, I was so distracted by how was I looking because I knew this was going to go to his school, and I wanted to make sure that I looked okay. How was my posture? People might see me. What if someone who knows me is on there? That made me nervous. But when I left, I was like, shoot, I totally forgot to tell him about A, B, and C. Crap. So now I have to come in next time and do it all over again and try to remember to tell him these details. So again, don't be this guy. And be her. So again, challenges with note taking. It breaks eye contact way too often. It shifts the attention away from our clients and they start thinking, what are you writing about me? What are you writing about me? I just told her that. What is she writing about me? And they start getting distracted as well. So just try to minimize. Now, at the very beginning of your interview, you can explain to your patient, oh, hi, so I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z, okay? And I'm going to be notating throughout this entire time. Are you okay with that? It's just I don't want to forget any of the important details you tell me. They'll be totally fine with it. So this question, okay, interviewing technique. So introducing the interview. There's directive, which is the structured, okay, close-ended questions. Non-directive, which is the client controls the pace. They're open-ended questions. You're going to start your interview with open-ended questions. What brings you in today? Can you tell me what brings you in today? How may I assist you today? Those are open-ended questions. Asking for someone's name. What is your name? What is your date of birth? Do you have pain? Those are closed-ended questions. Now, we talked about in class, some open-ended, they may be closed. So then you have to keep working around those questions to get that answer you need. So again, closed or direct questions, specific information, 1 to 2 word answers or yes or no. So you will use them after the narrative, okay, after the opening narrative. And this is especially if the patient leaves out any details and you're like, I need to dig a little deeper. Or they made this one comment, I need to dig a little bit deeper on that end. Now, there's some clients that are chatty catties, okay? They chit chat, 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 chat. And we have to do close-ended questions because we need to get this interview moving along. Because they're just telling us about every single little detail about their life, but I need to know specific parts on what brings them in today. Okay, 1, I want to apologize if you all heard my child playing. I did not realize how loud he was. So my apologies if that was a distraction. But we're 14 minutes in and we're not going to be recording. So anyways, open-ended questions. So this is at the very beginning of the interview. It's more of a narrative response. So again, what brings you in today? How may I assist you? The patient really drives this. This allows the patient to drive the interview. It gives them control on what they want to talk about. Okay, so again, assisting the narrative, our responses. So facilitation encourages the patient to say more and shows that we're interested and we're going to listen further. So again, silence is key. Honestly, silence gives us a chance to give the patient time to organize and think about what to say next without us interrupting. Along with, it gives us a turn to observe them more carefully about their nonverbal cues. And then reflection. Reflection is so key. We are echoing the patient's words. We're echoing their concerns. We're phrasing what just happened. So again, if that guy who had the dog, okay, like if I had the dog, you can say, I hear that you're saying that you have a dog. Okay, can you tell me more about that? Because it's reflection. Oh, she's listening. I did say I had a dog. Got it. Types of verbal responses. So there's empathy. So like we talked about, do we say I'm sorry? One kind of says that we're taking the blame. Now, if there's an instance that, yeah, I'm going to have to say sorry because I did do something wrong, I'm going to say sorry. But we need to be empathetic. We need to acknowledge their feelings. We need to make sure the patient feels accepted. And it allows expression of it, okay? It allows expression of how they feel. Clarification, totally fine if you did not understand what the patient was saying, that you asked for clarification. Do you mind repeating what you just said? I want to make sure we're on the same page. So just phrasing it in a therapeutic way where then you both are in agreement that, yes, this is what I said and this is how I meant it. So again, what would you say to him? Interpretation. So this is based on our conclusion. It helps the person understand his or her feelings in relation to the verbal message that they're sending out. Again, this might prompt further discussion of the particular topic, and it goes kind of along with clarification to make sure that whatever they're saying, that you're understanding it clearly on how they're trying to get it out. Explanation. So you're sharing factual and objective information, offering reasonings for the actions that may occur. And then summary. So I like to ask at the very end, is there anything else that we did not discuss today that you find important? Especially in the emergency department, I want to make sure I know exactly what they're there for, because they're not there for a total physical assessment. They're not here for a well exam. They're there for a specific problem that brought them in. So I need to know, is there anything else before we end that you forgot to mention or you find important for today's visit? So we also are compiling everything together, and we're giving a validation to the person that, okay, this is what you told me, this is what I got, this is the summary, and this is the plan of care. It's the kind of the I can't think of the word now, sign that the interview is ending. So again, 10 traps of interviewing. So providing false assurance or reassurance. So if someone's having chest pain and they're having a myocardial infarction, saying, it's okay, it's not okay, it's not okay. You're providing false assurance. Also giving unwanted advice. We don't give personal advice to our clients. We use facts. Using authority. So if someone is trying to get out of bed, it's an 89-year-old woman, and she's trying to get out of bed. You get in that bed because I'm your nurse. I said so. I don't use authority because guess what? I'm going to happen? It's not going to work. And I'm going to lose that rapport and lose that trust. Avoid using medical jargon, avoidance language. Engaging in the distance, like I talked about. There's a doctor I work with, and he is so far away. He's holding the curtain, okay, because he's about to leave. Leading or biased questions or talking too much. There's times that we could talk too much, and we leave, and then the patient's thinking, I didn't get to one word in. That nurse talked the entire time. She doesn't even know why I'm here. Interrupting our clients is another thing, along with asking the why questions. So again, interviewing people with special needs. So there's hearing impaired. We need to first assess them. Do they use hearing aids? Acutely ill. So if they're in distress, we need to take care of that distress, because then we can't proceed with the interview. So we need to take care of them initially, and then we can proceed with the interview. If clients are under street drugs or alcohol, it's going to be very difficult, especially if they are difficult themselves. Clients who are being asked personal questions, sometimes they don't want to answer those, so you have to kind of start the conversation saying, I'm going to ask you some personal questions. Examine the room if there's anyone else in the room. Ask them if they want them to stay or go. Sexually aggressive, crying, anger, threatening violence, or anxious, you have to deal with those first. Because if you can't deal with those first, those emotions and those stages, then you are not going to be able to proceed with the rest of the interview. You're not going to get enough data that you need. So again, culture and genetics. So gender, being aware of the culture norms, maintaining privacy and modesty. Sexual orientation. So like we talked about, being aware of your own personal bias and baggage. Cross culture. So a lot of our clients in Arizona speak Spanish. So if you have clients that speak Spanish and they're just saying, every time you ask them a question, they're just like, yeah, yes, yes, see, no, confirm. Okay, possibly you're asking open-ended questions, but you're getting closed-ended answers. So then you can ask them, do you need an interpreter? Do you speak Spanish? Or do you speak a different language than English? Then they can confirm, and then you can go to the different avenues to get that extra help. Again, overcoming communication barriers. So with the interpreters, touch. So there's therapeutic touch, but it's only in certain ways. So touching patients is necessary to our physical exam. Okay, we have to touch our patients. Now, I have a client that is crying. Okay, I might touch her arm because it's something that it's a natural human response of me to do that. But I need to also make sure it's okay with her or him. I might ask, be like, are you okay if I touch your arm? Or sometimes you don't even ask. But in our physical exam, we're going to ask. So at all times, honestly, you should just ask. But physical exam, I'm going to tell my patient exactly every single thing I'm going to do. Let's see. Health literacy. This is the couple of last things we're going to talk about. Is our clients can be really intelligent, right? They could have an MBA, they could have a PhD, they could be a multi-millionaire, but they don't have health literacy. People may be literate, but they don't understand health. So we need to make sure that we're communicating with them in layman terms, not medical jargon, and to a point where they can actually understand what we're saying. They don't feel overwhelmed with what we're talking about. So like for instance, at times when I go in for my son who's 2, I'm not a pediatric nurse, I'm an ER nurse, but I deal with some ped stuff, but when they're sick, I don't deal with a healthy kid. I don't know how to deal with that. So when I go in and I talk to his pediatrician, she talks to me in layman terms. She knows I'm a nurse, just the way we were talking one day, and then she caught on. And she's like, she still talked to me like I had no idea, which was so ideal because I didn't have a clue on what the heck she was talking about. And she realized that because I kept asking questions and I had to explain to her, I was like, I deal with kids, but I don't really understand what you're saying about this because it's just a different type of patient. Does that make sense? So techniques to improve health literacy is oral teaching and using written materials based on the standard educational levels. So what does that mean is make sure it's 3rd to 5th grade level. Just very plain words, okay, layman terms. And teach back, return demonstration. So just like that client I had with the STD, we continuously talked about it. And by the end of his visit, he told me his discharge paperwork. It was perfect. And hopefully it stuck because what we do as nurses is all we do is plant a little seed. That's all we do. Now we might plant a couple more seeds, but it's the patient's turn to make it grow. Okay? Same thing in class. I'm planting these little seeds for you, but it's your turn to make it grow. Okay, that's the best part of education is you guys. You guys get to make a difference. Okay, so that's the end of this. Go to Health Assess under Health History, okay, Module 3, and make sure you review it. We did talk about what is incorporated in a health history, so just review that for the test. Okay, have a great night.